Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to start a new topic in our main chapter, which we have been discussing as Paramattas. So far, we have discussed all the realities and also things that are related to the realities within the chart, the Paramatta group, and also what is in between Panyati and Paramattas. So today I decided to do the lecture on Dhamma and Dhammatas because they are also somewhat related to the Paramattas. Then next time we'll go into the Panyati explanation, which is the concepts, which are the concepts. So today we will be discussing about the realities and the laws, the difference of realities and the laws. The main focus will be about the laws, because so far we have discussed about, we have done with the realities, the Paramattas. Now it's our time to have a look into how these realities function in the existence. How these realities function in the existence. So we call it a law. It's a sort of a pattern which happens again and again. Without the pattern would not change normally. So then we would call it a law. We put something up within a gravitational field, it would naturally come down. So we can call gravity is a sort of a law that happens. The things are dragged towards heavier objects, or maybe it can be explained how the space-time has curved near heavier masses. So, however, we normally call it a law when the things do repeat again and again. When things do repeat again and again. If all the beings who are born would die one day, it's a law of impermanence. So it's a natural thing that everything that happens would cease, come into cessation one day. Then when the causes are gathered, the result would come up. When a karma is done, a result will be experienced. So these are the patterns of the nature. These are the patterns of some philosophers used to say it's habits of the nature. They are the habits of the nature. And some would call it the laws. So laws imply that they were, sometimes it may imply that they were commanded by the God, the Almighty. But according to the Buddhism, all the Buddhist sects unanimously reject the idea of a God, of an ultimate God who created the world and formulated the laws about its functioning. So everything happens naturally, but there are causes. So how these causes are making the effects, how these conditions cause the effects. This thing, this incident is something governed by a natural law. So who made these laws? What are the causes of these laws? It is unable to be explained. For example, we normally say the causes of realities in Theravāda Buddhism. And also this, when such causes gather, such a result would come up. So this incident, this phenomenon is called a law. Based on which conditions these laws are happening, it's unexplainable. So there are no causes for these laws. So therefore, in some Buddhist sects, they suggested that the law, Dhammatā, is an unconditioned nature. That approach makes sense. But the thing is, when we are talking about the conditioned and the unconditioned in the Theravada perspective, we exclusively talk about the realities. The realities, not the laws. So law is not defined either as conditioned or unconditioned, or either as permanent or impermanent. I think we discussed about this point in the Tilakkana lesson. We should not say the law of impermanence is permanent. It is a true law. It's a true phenomenon. It's something that happens. Therefore, we have to be very careful in our usage when we talk from the Theravada perspective. But thing that we should know is all the realities, the conditioned realities, not the unconditioned ones, all the conditioned realities have causes. And this relationship between cause and effect is governed by a law. That law is not conditioned or is not made by someone or because of any reason. It is something that happens. It is a nature of the universe. So we cannot explain why it is. So when we go into the Western philosophy, how they try to explain the world based on how it is functioning, there are three main theories. One is the, we call it, I forgot the name. It's like all these things happens spontaneously. Spontaneously means without any reason. So all these are by chance. Sorry, that's the doctrine of chance, by chance. The Big Bang theory would have happened or would not have happened. So because it happened, and as all the things happen in a by chance, so therefore everything is in this nature. But when we go into the deep understanding, in the scientific perspective, we find there's a fine tuning. Even if the gravitational force was changed from the tiniest fraction, if there was a change, the entire world would have collapsed. That's how some scientists suggest. If the electromagnetism, the force had a slight change, the entire universe would not behave like this, because they have constants. The constant in the gravitational force. We have a constant in the electromagnetism force. This constant in the light speed of the light. So all these, if most of these constants, if they had a slight change, the entire universe would have collapsed. So therefore, the biggest argument, biggest challenge for the doctrine of chance is that how did fine tuning happen? How did fine tuning? Was it possible that there was, when we look into the probabilities, it's very, very unnatural that such a fine tuning would happen by chance. But there are counter arguments for this. There are counter arguments, because always in philosophy there are arguments, counter arguments, answers, and so forth. Then the next theory is the intelligent design, that the entire universe was created by an almighty creature. Almighty creature. So that's why everything was fine-tuned. Then the question comes, how that creature was created? That is the biggest question, one of the biggest questions that the divine, the intelligent design has to face. What are the laws, or what are the laws that governs his existence? It's a very huge question that cannot be answered. The third theory is, we call it the doctrine of necessity. The doctrine of necessity. So everything happens in this way because it had to happen. Because it had to happen. So why these things happen? Because there are certain laws which governs. Because of the law, the gravitational force exists, or this gravity exists. Because of the law, an electron exists. Because of a law, there is an attraction between electrons and protons. So likewise, they give this entire reason to a certain law. Because of these laws, habits of the nature, the world exists, the universe exists. So the biggest question for this doctrine of necessity is why there are such laws, from which they sprung out. What were the reasons for such laws, and where are those such laws? How can we find it? because we cannot point it out. We can point out an electron, or we can point out a chitta, consciousness, or according to Theravāda tradition, we can point out a rupa kalapa. But how do we point, or how do we say about a law? Where does it exist? Where did it come from? So these are the questions that all these three theories had to answer. In the Western world, now these days, mostly discussed is the doctrine of chance and the doctrine of intelligent design. The doctrine of necessity is rarely discussed at this age. But when we look into the Theravada tradition, we find it's very close to the doctrine of necessity, because we are advocating about certain laws. Today we are going to discuss about these laws which governs the existence of the universe as it has been advocated under the Theravada tradition. So we are calling it Dhammatā. Dhamma and Dhammatā. Dhamma are the realities. What is a reality? It has its own intrinsic nature. It can be verified, or it can be, we can say it can be verified, or it can be it is applicable to one of the 4 functions of the sasana. It can be known in its intrinsic nature. Some of the realities can be abandoned. Pahana kicca, the first one was called pariññā kicca. Then some realities can be developed, the wholesome qualities, the bhavana kicca, and some can be attained, like the nirvana, sachikarana kicca. So we find realities like chitta, chetasika, rupa, the anusaya, and so forth. Anusaya is something that can be abandoned. So it's a reality. It's a sort of a reality. It's a stage of a reality. But when we come into the Dhammatas, Dhammatas are phenomenon. Next week, we are going to divide our chart, the entire chart, the Paramattha chart, into Dhamma and Dhammatas, where they are located. How should we understand them? Next week will be such a lecture. So today we are going to explain about this phenomenon. What is a phenomenon? So today's lecture would lead to see the difference of Dhamma and Dhammatā. Then Dhammatā is equal to Niyāma. Then we talk about 5 types of Niyāma and special attention. So we have 5 types. Utu, Bija, we'll explain them in English. Then Chitta, Kamma, and Dhamma Niyama. Then we have a special Niyama we'll be explaining about Yoninyama. This will be the attention in our lecture today. So first we need to differentiate what is a Dhamma and what is a Dhammatā. Dhamma is a reality. It has its own intrinsic nature and it is applicable. It can be, we can call, it can be found or verified in terms of the 4 functions. It can be known in its intrinsic nature. Some of the Dhammas can be abandoned. Some of the Dhammas can be developed and some can be attained. But Dhammatā is a law that governs the happening of an incident. For instance, a rising of a reality due to certain causes. The nature, the length of the existence of certain realities. How realities are affecting the other realities. So these happenings do not happen. These happenings do not happen in a chaos. There is a pattern. When we say chaos, we say because there is anything could happen at any time. When countries are in chaos, we don't know. We don't have a security. We could get shot anytime. We could be arrested anytime. Even for criticizing the government, or even for the smaller things. In some countries, just watching a Hollywood movie could make you to be executed. So we are in a chaos in such place. There is a law, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't apply to all the people. Anything could happen. Some countries are not governed by a systematic law. And also, when there is an anarchy, when there is no leader, we find a chaos. But when this governing system is well arranged, whether it's an autocracy or a democracy, we see a pattern, how things works. So likewise, in the natural system in the natural world, things happen in a pattern. For instance, if we do a wholesome deed, as a result of this deed, we are not going to get a bad result. We are going to get a pleasant result. If a consciousness arises, it's not going to last for minutes. It's going to vanish immediately, and another consciousness would follow. It's not that the consciousness would stop immediately without a reason. And also, when the summer comes in the tropical areas, tropical regions, after the summer, it's normally the rainy season. The winter doesn't fall after the summer normally in tropical regions. The winter comes after the rainy season. So there are patterns. So these patterns in the natural world are called the laws or the phenomenon. So that is what has been explained in the word Dhammatā. Chitta is a Dhamma. The happening of a chitta, the phenomenon that the chitta has to take an object, is a Dhammatā. Chitta is the reality, is a Dhamma. Chitta is caused by certain reasons, certain conditions. Chitta happens due to certain conditions. Object is one, previous chitta is one. So when the things gather, a rising of a chitta, happening of a chitta is a Dhammatā. It's also a Dhammatā that the chitta would vanish immediately after it has arisen, after it has performed its functions. So difference of Dhamma and Dhammatā, Dhammatas are always upon the Dhammas, are related to Dhammas. They are happening on the Dhammas. We cannot talk a Dhammatā without Dhamma, that's true. But how these Dhammas happens? What is the pattern in them? Does a chitta can happen out of nothing? So can one be born in the human realm without a meritorious deed, according to the philosophy of Theravāda? No, it cannot happen. There are certain specific fixed reasons. So therefore, because of this pattern, the fixed pattern, sometimes this Dhammatā has been explained as Niyati, something which is fixed to happen. It doesn't mean that the future is fixed. If a wholesome karma is done, a good result is fixed. Fixed doesn't mean that you have to experience it, but that is how the world works. It's a fixed phenomenon. And sometimes we call it Niyāma. It governs, it determines the existence of the world. And also, it is Pakati. This is the natural, like the basic nature of the world. It's the original nature of the world, how it functions. So these are the words that we can find to to explain this phenomena. Niyati, Niyāma, Pakati, sometimes Sabhava. Sabhava can refer to the Dhammas as well in some contexts, and Dhammatā. The difference between Dhammatā, I'll repeat again. Dhamma is the difference between Dhamma and Dhammatā is Dhamma is a reality which has an intrinsic nature, which can be verified in terms of 4 functions advocated in the Theravāda tradition. It can be known in its intrinsic nature. Some of the Dhammas can be abandoned. Some of the Dhammas can be developed. Some of the Dhammas can be attained. Dhammatā is the things that happen, the things that are related to these Dhammas. The happening of a reality, existence of a reality. For example, if we talk about some examples, the rainy season coming after the summer in tropical regions. So the appearing of, not appearing, we'd call arising of effects when the causes have gathered. The phenomenon that a rupa would last for 17 mind moments. The phenomenon that a good karma would give good, pleasant results, not bad results, ill results. A bad karma would give ill results. The karma is going to affect the doer itself, not someone else. These are the laws. These are the Dhammatas. Avidya is causing sankhara, not the vijnana. So it's a law, it's a phenomenon. So Dhamma, avidya is a Dhamma, sankhara is a Dhamma. Happening of sankhara due to avidya is a Dhammatā. It would not change. It's not permanent. Dhammatā is not permanent. For example, if avidya is present, sankhara would arise. Karma. Sankhara is karma. Avidya is ignorance. So avidya is a Dhamma. Sankhara is a Dhamma. It's a reality. Sankhara or karma is a Dhamma. When avidya is present, the sankhara would arise. This entire thing happening is a Dhammatā. We cannot point out avidya is not a Dhammatā. Sankhara is not a Dhammatā. Happening of sankhara due to avidya. The relationship between sankhara and avidya. So all these have to be explained when we talk about Dhammatā. So paticca samuppada is a Dhammatā. There is an argument in the Theravāda tradition that some would say paticca samuppada is related to Dhammas, but the most logical would be to call it a Dhammatā. There's a huge discussion about this within the literature. So this is the difference. Dhamma, the realities, Dhammatā are the natures, laws that govern the existence of such realities. So then we go into the types of Dhammatas that we have. According to the Theravāda tradition, we have mainly Dhammatā. Another word for Dhammatā is Niyāma. Another word for Dhammatā is Niyāma. We are going to talk about Niyāma. Dhammatā, the equal word is Niyāma. There are 5 types of Niyāma. There are 5 types. Niyāma, we call. Or Dhammatā. The word Dhammatā you can find in Digha Nikaya. Buddha has explained about this. And to be true, when the Buddha understood the world, according to the tradition, he understood the Dhammas. More importantly, he understood the Dhammatas. That's why he could say, whatever consciousness that arises is impermanent, suffering, and non-self. Someone can argue, can't it be that in another 100,000 eons, can't there be a possibility that a permanent consciousness would arise? Buddha says, no, it is impossible. Can't it be that the entire world would become happy instead of becoming dukkha, suffering? Buddha says it's impossible. It could not happen. Why is that? According to the tradition, we believe and we understand that the Buddha understood the Dhammatā, the phenomenon. He mentioned the paticca samuppada is a Dhammatā that happens even if the Tathagata was born or before his birth, or even if he was not born. this Dhammatā, this natural system, this law would keep on continuing. So his enlightenment is basically about the Dhammatā. But we cannot understand a Dhammatā without understanding Dhamma. So through understanding the Dhammas, he realizes the Dhammatā of the world. And he attained a Dhamma which is called the Nirvana. Nirvana is a Dhamma, it's not a Dhammatā. Nirvana is a Dhamma, he attained it. But his realization, his knowledge is basically about the Dhammatas. When someone becomes an Arahant, that's the same thing which happens. We understand the Dhammatā. Because every chitta is new, every moment, every rupa is getting new rupas happening. So before we attain the enlightenment, we have to contemplate with Vipassanā, the Nama and Rupa. So when Arahant becomes Nama and Rupa, what do we think? He contemplated Nama and Rupa till that moment. He's unable to contemplate all the Nama Rupas that have happened. And also it is not possible that you contemplate all the Nama Rupas during Vipassanā. There are lots of plenty of Nama Rupa which are happening, which are not contemplated, according to the Theravāda Abhidhamma. And also after the Arahanthood, all the chittas are new chittas. All the rupas are new rupas. He has not contemplated them. So someone can argue, can't there be a chitta that happens after his enlightenment that he has not understood? The thing is, in Vipassanā, through focusing on Dhammas, we understand the Dhammatā, we understand the natural phenomenon. So when our understanding about the Dhammatā is accomplished, we say we have realized all the Dhammas. The understanding comes mainly, basically about the Dhammatas, through Dhammas. So to understand the Dhammatā, to understand that all the realities are impermanent, we have to contemplate on realities. So that's why in the sutras, we find how the enlightenment happens. Yang kinchi samudaya dhamman sabbantan nirodha dhamman. Whatever reality which is conditioned would end for sure. Whatever reality that happens would end. Reality is a Dhamma. The phenomenon that the reality would, any reality which is conditioned would pass away is a Dhammatā. So therefore, the deepest understanding comes really in Dhammatas. When a Dhammatā is understood, we say when a specific Dhammatā is understood, all the Dhammas related to that Dhammatā is understood. Whether it happens in future, or whether it's happened in the past, or whether it's happening in the present life, doesn't matter. When the Dhammatā is clearly understood, the Dhamma is realized. That is why in Theravāda tradition, it is not necessary that you focus on the present moment Vipassanā. That's why it's not a necessity. Even if someone does it, it's okay, it's good. It can be a meditation technique, but it's not a necessity fact. So that's why when someone says Vipassana has to be in the present moment, it is a wrong statement according to Theravāda tradition. Vipassana can be done related to the present objects, but it's not a must. If someone says Vipassana is on the present moment, it's a wrong statement. Vipassana can be about a present reality, a past reality, a future reality, or a phenomenal reality. Why is a phenomenal reality is still enough? Because our understanding happens about the Dhammatā, not about the Dhamma. It's true that we understand the Dhamma. If I say we don't understand the Dhammas, it's a wrong statement. The real understanding happens about the Dhammatas. And when a Dhammatā is understood, all the Dhammas are known. All Dhammas are known. So therefore, the difference of Dhamma and Dhammatā. Now we come into 5 types of Niyāma or Dhammatas advocated in the Theravāda tradition. We have Uttu Niyāma, we call. Then we have Bija Niyāma. Chitta Niyāma. Kamma Niyāma. We have Niyāma. These are the 5. You can find them in the commentary on Digha Nikaya. And some of these, all these Chitta and Niyāma, Niyāma has been explained in very detail in the Buddhist doctrine, and Niyāma also. Bija and Niyāma has not been explained much in sutras, but it can be understood very logically. Niyāma means, Utu here refers to, now sometimes we have Utu called, we refer to the Tejo Dhatu, Utu. When we say Niyāma, what does it mean? The happening of the weather conditions, happening of the natural weather, how do you call it, like the weather cycle, we can call. Summer comes at a certain time in a year. With the summer, there are changes in trees. In the autumn, the leaves would fall in certain countries. During the rainy season, certain fruits will be bared, and during the summer as well. So likewise, there is a weather cycle. It's not governed by a deity. It's not governed by anyone else. It is a natural phenomenon which happens in the world. So therefore, so that happening of that, the phenomenon which governs these incidents, this cycle, the weather cycle, is called Niyāma. According to the destruction and the construction happening of the world, according to the Theravādas, earth gets destructed and it originates again. And this cycle happens again and again, destruction and origination. So it's a cycle. So it falls under this Niyāma. Bija Niyāma means a law related to the trees, botanical things, not all biological things. Because when we say biology, we include animals even. So according to Theravādas, Bija Niyāma is only related to the trees, plants. So the explanation was, if we plant a mango seed, we would get mango trees and mango fruit, not otherwise. If we plant a sweet seed, we would get sweet fruits. If we plant a bitter seed, we would get bitter fruit. So likewise, scientifically we explain it in the genetical relationship. So this phenomenon, it happens according to Theravada tradition. It happens as the Uttuja Rupas. So in a lineage, if we mix and science and Theravada in this point of view, the genes are transferred from one tree to another. The Theravada perspective, Uttuja Rupas of that particular tree had all these traits. That seed had all the traits of the previous tree, his mother tree, and they were transmitted to the new tree. So the new Uttuja Rupas that happen or that are connected or that are gained to the new tree is affected by the Uttuja Rupas that came from the previous tree. Because when a new tree is grown, new tree grows, the new Uttuja Rupas are taken from the soil and the water. It's a transformation of Rupas. We will be discussing this when we come to the Rupa chapter, how our bodies grow according to the Theravada tradition. So when the growth happens with new Rupas, the nature of those Rupas are affected by the Uttuja Rupas which came in the initial stage from the mother tree. So that's how we combine it scientifically. Scientifically means when we try to explain it, how the mechanism happens in the Theravada perspective. But that is a law that but the following, now the soil gives the mass to the tree, the water, because of these new elements, the tree grows, because the energy is constant in the universe according to the science. So when the new tree grows with new elements, why didn't it? Now when we plant a mango tree, the new elements, why didn't it grow like a coconut tree? The reason was the effect of the rupa in the mango seed. It affects the new elements. So they are structured like the previous mango tree. For instance, now this is the mother tree. This is the seed. So this seed is planted. So when the new tree grows, this matter is not a growth of this seed. There are certain matter which is gained from the seed to the tree, but the most of the matter is gained from soil, from fertilizer and water. So these new elements that comes into this, so the most of the elements are new ones. With this, the tree grows, the new tree grows. So why this tree has a resemblance to the previous tree? Because the new rupas are affected by the previous rupa that came into the rupas of the seed. So this is the bija niyama. It's not a matter, it's how it affects. Therefore, when a mango seed is planted, a mango tree grows. So we also know scientifically, when a tree grows, the matter is gained from outside. It's a multiplication of the cell, but still, how that mass increased because it's gained from outside. Even our bodies are growing because of the matter. We insert it with our food. So according to Theravāda tradition, also our bodies grow due to the food we partake. Trees grow due to the matter that is gained through fertilizer and so forth. So, but the previous rupas affect the new coming rupas. So they are structured into the similar to the way the mother tree or the parents of the siblings. We'll come to that with Yoninyama. Then Chitta Niyama, law of Chitta. This we will be discussing in future lectures. The pattern of the Chitta. I consciousness arises after adverting, 5-do adverting consciousness. So there are many technical terms to be explained. So when after the I consciousness, always there should be a receiving consciousness. So that's a law. It's not governed by, it's not determined or arranged by a everlasting or almighty creature. It is the law which is affecting or related to the consciousness. It's a natural law. It's a natural thing in the world. It's a natural order. It's not possible that a ear consciousness happens immediately after the eye consciousness. Some would ask, now when we are looking at someone and listening to him, so we get ear consciousness and eye consciousness one after another. That is how we feel according to the mechanism, mechanism explained in Abhidhamma. It happens in processes. So it's impossible. It is possible that after eye consciousness process, after few processes, immediately a ear consciousness process would happen after few processes. But it's impossible that ear consciousness is immediately following eye consciousness. So these are the laws of the consciousness. The karma niyama, law of karma. If someone do a good deed, he would surely get good results. If someone do a bad deed, the ill results would be attained. If someone do any of the heinous deeds, the patricide, matricide, and so forth, he'll be surely born in a woeful realm. So these are laws of karma. Buddha understood this law. That's why he said a good deed would not bring ill results. That is impossible. A bad deed would not bring good results. It's impossible. We are talking about the strange phenomenon of karma. It doesn't mean that all the effects of our actions in the present life are determined so. Sometimes we do good deeds. We may get bad effects or good effects based on various reasons. In a society where good deeds are not appreciated, sometimes we may get the blame for doing a good deed. In a society where bad deeds are appreciated, sometimes killing a being, another human being, would bring us a lot of wealth. It depends on a lot of reasons when we are talking about the effects of karma. When we talk about the results of karma, that is a different thing. Results of karma is you do a good deed and you are born in a good realm. That is the strange hidden, unknown phenomenon for the entire for the common folks. So when we talk about the karma niyama, we have to talk about the effects of karma and the results of karma. In terms of results, Buddha mentioned it is impossible, monks, a good deed would give a ill result. It is impossible a bad deed would give a pleasant result. But it is possible that the good karmas in this very life may have good effects and bad effects. Even a bad karma may have good effects and bad effects. It's a different thing. So we have to discuss about this when you come to the karma lesson. Then Dhamma Niyama. All the other laws other than the Kamma Niyama, Chitta Niyama, Bija Niyama, and Utu Niyama are called Dhamma Niyama. Because of avijja, the sankhara happens. Rupa would last for 17 mind moments. If avijja is not eradicated, all the javana chetanas would become a karma. So these, all the other phenomena are combined or put into this Dhamma Niyama group. So this is the entire chart of the niyamas in the Buddhist teaching. This is a brief explanation. So when you go into explanation about them, so the Chitta Niyama is an entire series of lectures. Karma Niyama is an entire series of lectures. Dhamma Niyama is also. So these have to be discussed when we come to the conditionality. Conditionality. So then we come into a special niyama called Yoninyama. Yoninyama, which is under Dhamma Niyama. It's not all Dhamma Niyama. Yoninyama. So Yoninyama says that beings or the offspring of a certain species have similar traits to their parents. Have similar traits to their parents. Similarly, offsprings or offshoots of trees or outcomes of trees do possess similar features of their parents, parental trees or the ancestral trees. So likewise, we do have traits of our parents and also sometimes of our ancestors, even of our grandfathers, great-grandfathers. We do have such traits. So this is a law. How do we understand it as a law? So when one child is born, it's born in a mother's womb only after a combination or intercourse has happened. So there is a part, a sperm, that has come from the father's side, and also the egg that comes from the mother's side. This is from father, this is from mother. That is how the biology works. Now, when the consciousness arises, together with it arises certain rupa, we call kamaja rupas. Right? We assume, this is not directly mentioned in the tradition, we assume that this would happen in this cell. This one cell, the consciousness, it gets a base which is called kamaja rupa. We draw the consciousness with a different color. Consciousness, and it associates, together with arises some subtle rupas, kamaja rupas, but it is based on some rupa from mother and father. So these are utuja rupas. So what is happening now? We know in Abhidhamma, once you have studied Abhidhamma, for some listeners, this may not be very intelligible, but anyway, so these new rupas, they do grow to a certain extent, not entirely. At the same time, some Uttuja Rupas are added to our life from the mother and father. That's why we have a DNA similarity. DNA is from our parents. It's an obvious fact. It's a proven fact. So according to Paramatta Dipani, the Lady Sayadaw says, there are some Uttuja Rupas that are given to our body from mother and father. So this matches with the modern experience that we have, that our body, the main structure of our body comes from the mother and father's sperm and the egg, the connection. It becomes a one cell and it gets multiplied. That is the Uttuja Rupa. Upon it, the consciousness has occurred together with some Kammaja Rupas. From Kammaja Rupas, some Uttuja Rupas start to spring out, but their generation cannot last, cannot last more than 4 or 5 generations. So our body is constituted, the main core of our body is constituted from Uttuja Rupas given from our parents and also from the food we partake. While we are in the mother's womb, from the food that was partaken by the mother, and while we have born, after we have born, the food that we eat. That constitutes the main core of our body. The Kammaja Rupas, when they come into the persisting moment, they would cause some Uttuja Rupas, some Aharaja Rupas, but their generation cannot last. According to Visuddhimagga, they may last only for 4 or 5 generations. Only for 4 or 5 generations. So therefore, the main core of our body is given from parents and afterwards from food. But still, this Rupa and the food that comes from outside, food, the Rupas coming from food, so then it starts to grow. So these new Rupas that are coming from food, when they get arranged to a body, we see a similarity to our parents. The same food eaten by a different creature would give a different form. Why is that? Because of the Rupas given to our body from our parents' bodies. So these Rupas affect the Kammaja Rupas that were born, that arose at the Patisandhi moment. So because of this effect, these Kammaja Rupas are going to affect the entire body, the Tejodhatu of Kammaja Rupa. So whenever new Rupas enter into our body through food channels, when they get structured into cells, into a body, they are structured according to this, according to the effect of the Kammaja Rupas, which are affected by the Rupas given from our parents. And also we can say these Rupas also affect the newly coming Rupas. Kammaja Rupas effect and these Rupas effect. So what happens? This effect of the previous Rupas, Uttuja Rupas given from the parents, or the Kammaja Rupas that are affected by those Uttuja Rupas. So they do affect the Rupas, the latter Rupas that are brought into our body by the food. Then what happens? It starts to grow. When they are converted into cells, they have similar traits, the same DNA, and all these would happen. It is also a very deep, very difficult thing to explain scientifically, how we gain our mass, how our cells are developed based on this mass that we put through food. Because always there's no new mass created, so all have to come from the food channels that we eat. According to Theravāda also, our body is growing. It's not because of Aharaja Rupa. It's a transformation of the Uttuja Rupas in the food into body parts. So while this transformation happens, the same food eaten by two different people would give different bodies. That is because our first initial rupa given from our parents has affected. In the Theravāda perspective, we are talking about the rupa produced by karma, chitta, and ahara even. Especially the karmaja rupas, which are not discussed scientifically. Those karmaja rupas at the moment of conception are also affected by these new rupas of parents. So these karmaja rupas also affect the structure of the body. So this effect given by the karmaja rupas and also directly from the uttuja rupas from the parents has caused our bodies to appear to have similar traits to our parents and of our ancestors. This is called Yoninyama. Yoninyama, this rupa that is gained from parents to the children, the offsprings, can be called Yoni Rupa. And this phenomenon is called the Yoninyama. It's similar to the Bija Niyama. In the Bija Niyama, it's only Uttuja Rupas are affecting new incoming Uttuja Rupas. In the Yoninyama, difference is Uttuja Rupas are affecting the incoming Uttuja Rupas. At the same time, Uttuja Rupas affect the Kamaja Rupas, and those Kamaja Rupas are also affecting the incoming Rupa. And also, those Kamaja Rupas are also affecting the new generations that spring out of them. So this is what is called Yoninyama. That is why, according to Theravāda tradition, cats, offspring of cats are similar to cats. Dogs, similar to dogs. Offspring of humans are similar, we have very close, like humans. We have same features. But with the evolution, it may change, the appearance may change. But according to Theravāda, I have to admit that according to Theravāda tradition, an animal cannot be converted into human because there are limitations in the conversion, in the evolution, because animal realm is a result. One is born as an animal as a result of unwholesome deeds, and one is born as a human as a result of wholesome deeds. There is a huge clear cut between the animals and the humans. That is where the Buddhism and evolution contradicts greatly. And another place is the existence of consciousness. According to the evolution, it's only a biological functioning which is happening. There is no such a thing called the spiritual aspect of the life. Now the scientists are telling that the consciousness happens based on the material stuff. It's a new emergence. Some are talking about new emergence. Some still stick to the idea that everything is material and there is no free will. But in the Buddhist perspective, we talk about different element from the material stuff, which depends on the materiality, but it is a complete different thing, which is called consciousness, and it happens in generations. Some philosophers advocated that this consciousness is one thing. It's the soul. It could transmigrate from life to life, even from human life to the heavens or hells, or from life to life, as some Eastern religions suggest. But according to Buddhism, this consciousness is also an element, and it arises and passes, and it happens in generations. This generation continues due to causes like karma, avidya, ignorance, craving, and so forth. Right. So this is how we explain the Dhammatas, Niyamas, according to the Buddhist traditions. So this would be the lecture, today's lecture about Dhamma and Dhammatā. I think we cover all. We cover the difference between Dhamma and Dhammatā. What is a Dhamma, which has an intrinsic nature, and how to verify a Dhamma. And Dhammatā is the law that governs how these Dhammas exist. And we talked about the 5 types of Niyāma, Uttu, Bija, Chitta, Kamma, and Dhamma. And out of them, we gave special attention to Yoninyama, where how the offsprings of certain species have the traits of their parents. Right. So this will be the discussion. Next week, I'll be discussing our chart, Paramatta chart. Now we have few names, 4 in this Sankata Paramatta, 5 in the Asankata Paramatta, and few in between. Where do they locate? How do we relate? How do we understand them based on Dhamma and Dhammatā? So that will be the lecture for the next week. So I'll conclude the lecture and open the forum for the Q&A session.
Okay. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante. Hello, everyone. If you have any question, you can raise your hand or you can put your question in the chat box. Yeah, good morning, Bhante. I have a question. So during the lecture, you said that for the Vipassanā practice, then if anyone's saying that Vipassanā practice has to be on the present Dhamma, then it's not a correct statement according to the tradition. But shouldn't it be the way that, you know, a meditator has to start with present condition reality first, and then later on he can do the maybe past or future conditioned realities by inference, Bhante?
Not exactly, because if you go into the sutras, especially, I'll give a direct sutta link to this. Saṅyutta Nikāya, yeah, Saṅyutta Nikāya, Salayatana Vagga, Saṅyutta Nikāya. So if you read these few suttas in the first Vagga, Ajjatta Anicca Sutta, Ajjatta Dukkha, Ajjatta Anatta, Bahira Anicca, Bahira Dukkha, Bahira Anatta, and the seven, starting from number 7, Ajjatta Anicca Atita Anagata Sutta. So one has to contemplate. The commentary says, for some, it is very difficult to contemplate the present. So when we say past, present, and future in Vipassanā, according to the sutra, we are talking past is the past life, present, future is the future life, present is the present life. Even when it was explained in the Baddekaratta Sutta, Paccupannanca yo dhamman tatta tatta vipassati, Baddekaratta Sutta. If you go to the sutta, Buddha clearly says, it's a clear statements are there. What we understand as the past is the past lives. What we understand as the future is future lives, and what we understand the present is the present life. It's not the present moment. So the commentary says, for some, even it is difficult to focus on the present life. For example, Nama Rupa, which we had yesterday or we will have in future, related to this life. So Buddha suggested them in Salayatana Vagga, contemplate, think about your past lives and future lives. Because when we practically do Vipassana, it's easier for us to contemplate on the infer. It's an inference. So when we infer the past and future, it's easier for us to do the contemplation. The commentators say, these sutras in the Salayatana Vagga was stated for the yogis who are unable to focus on the present life because their attachment to the life is very strong. So it's very difficult for them to contemplate in terms of Anicca, Dukkha, and Anatta, this strongly attached Nama and Rupa. For them, Buddha considered focus on the past. The Nama Rupa have passed away, about the future that will appear and pass away. And then when your wisdom starts to grow, you'll be able to focus on the present life. It's not the present moment. This present moment Vipassana has few origins. One is the Mahasi method. Because the Mahasi method became very popular in Burma and internationally, and also the Mogok method, which was a very famous method in Myanmar. So the idea of a present moment Vipassana came into the table, and also from Thailand, from Thai forest traditions. But when you go into the Theravāda tradition, which is the ancient tradition, the Mahasi method is based on the Theravāda tradition. It's a Theravāda technique, but it's just a one technique. As this technique gained popularity, there appeared a wrong idea that the Vipassana has to be exclusively on the present moment, either from the beginning or the entire thing. But when we go into the tradition and how the ancient Vipassana books have explained, it's very clear that you take the idea of Patavi, you take the idea of Tejo, Vijnana, and so forth. To get an example, it's sure that you have to understand the present thing, that we understand the thing presently. What is Patavi, we touch and we understand. What is consciousness, we understand it. But when we are contemplative, and for understand what the reality is, yes, it's true that we have to think about it. Now, but for example, if you think someone gains jhanas, now his akusalas have subdued. Now, if he starts vipassana after samatha jhana, how does he understand the akusala chetasikas? Is it necessary that he has to arouse akusalas to feel it first and then to start the contemplation? Then he would lose the jhana. So therefore, even he understands this is how the raga was, and that his past experience. Because think about a person who has jhanas and who has never done vipassana in the tradition, who are ordained, and some people just practice samatha and get the jhanas, and then they learn the vipassana and start to contemplate. Now, to such a yogi, if a teacher says, now you contemplate on raga as anicca, dukkha, and anatta, how does he understand? He has to think about the past, one of his experiences. And some rupas, some namas, if such natures have not now, for example, Mahakassapa, he never had lustful thoughts into his entire life. How did he contemplate on raga? Did he has to arouse raga? No. It's just an understanding. He knows how raga happens in other beings, and then he knows that this raga is conditioned and it is impermanent. So this is the very basic level of vipassana. Inference. It's based on knowledge. But there is a direct experience. How do we come from knowledge to the direct experience? The facilitation has been done by, it has been facilitated through the information. That's why we study Lakkana, Rasa, Pachupattana, Padattana. Having known it, we try to grab it practically. So the practical experience, knowing a reality and practically knowing a reality and knowing its information is two things. So after we cross this bridge, maybe observing the present moment, or maybe thinking about the past, maybe thinking based on our knowledge, trying to grab it, what it is. Mostly it's with our experience. Then we understand this is lobha, this is dosa, this is moha. Then to our contemplation, it is not necessarily that we focus only on the present moment. If someone does it, it's not a problem. It's a technique of the tradition. But it's not the entire scope. The fault is that we try to generalize this, that present moment vipassana is the only vipassana, or we have to start from the present moment vipassana. It's not necessarily. But for some, for example, if someone asks, even I myself maybe may have started with the present moment experience. But it's not the reason for me to say that it is the only way, because in sutras, with our own experience and also with the information that we get through the commentaries, it is very clear. But what matters is we know the ultimate nature. So, and also according to sutras, present, past, future in the Vipassana teachings. Present means, in most of the sutras, the present life. Past means the past lives. Future means the future life. In the commentarial level, present means the santati pachupanna, generational present. Past and future is the same. In some places, khana pachupanna. So this is how I would give an answer for this question.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And the follow-up question, I have to ask this question for the benefit of the audience.
Yes,
because,
sure.
Because I'm sure that somebody is going to have a question on this. So then how are we going to understand the context of the sutta I think that the sutta is the Lomasakanghiya Padde Karatta Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. So in there, the Buddha said that, we should not think about the past, we should not ponder about the future, but we need to focus on the present. And the word the Buddha is using for the present is the Vipassanā. So we should see that only for the present. So how should we understand that in this context?
Yeah. So thing is, now it's a very good thing. The Buddha said, don't atitang nanva game. I think you are talking about the Majjhima Nikaya, right? Majjhima Nikaya Sutta, right?
Yes, Bhante.
Atitang nanva game. Looking at the Sutta, atitang nanva game. Nappatikkanke anagatam. Yadatitam pahinantang appattancha anagatam. We do not think about the past. We should not ponder about the future. What is past is already gone. What is future has not come yet. Pachupannancha yo dhamman tatta tatta vipassati. One has to focus on the Pachuppanna Dhamma. Then the Buddha explains what is the past, what is the future. I didn't complete the entire Gatha because the main three are the first three lines. Then katancha bhikkave atitan nanva gameya. How do we understand what is the past? Eva rupo ahosing atita madhanang. When we are talking about the atita madhanang in the context in the sutras, we mostly refer to the past lives. And also the commentators, the sub-commentators. The sub-commentator clearly explains this point in the Digha Nikaya sub-commentary, that this sutta, the past is referring to the past lives. Future is referring to the future lives. Eva rupo ahosing atita madhana. I was so and so in the past lives. Tatta nandin samanva neti. And he thinks about this past life. I have been a deity, I have been such and such, and he thinks about it. Evang vedano ahosing. I was experiencing such places in class. So likewise he thinks about the 5 aggregates. And about the future, he thinks, I will be so and so. I will be a deva and so, right? So then, katancha bhikkave pachuppannesu dhammesu asanghirati. How does he focus on present moments? So then he contemplates rupa is anatta, khandha, vedana is anicca, dukkha, anatta, sankhara, sanya, vijnana, and so forth. So when we talk about this present life, it is not possible. That's also we have to think. I have to mention that it is not possible that we do not focus on this present experience, that we get liberated just thinking about the past or the future. We have to have experience on this. So when we focus on this present life, for instance, the Juha Vijnana, while we are contemplating, while we are contemplating on Juha Vijnana, we know that when we eat something, it appears and passes away. It's not a permanent thing. For that, what I mean as the present is to understand the impermanence of suffering and non-selfness of the Jiva Vijnana, the tongue consciousness. It is not necessary that we have food in our mouth. It's not necessary that we understand the impermanent suffering and non-selfness in the matter while walking, that we have to walk. It is mentioned in the Samanya Pala Sutta commentary, the ancient Arahant called Mahasiva. He became an Arahant at the age of 90. He had 30,000 Arahant disciples, and his instruction was to his disciples. The commentary states he was an Arahant in ancient Sri Lanka. We consider him as one of the greatest Arahants of the ancient Ceylon, who practiced together with the Bodhisattva but became late due to their negligence in the samsara. He was a well-reputed teacher, Vipassanā teacher. So his statement has been recorded in the Samanya Pala Sutta, Sampajanya Pabba commentary. It says, when you want to understand the Nama and Rupa while walking, either you do it while walking, or you do the walking with a different contemplation, like Samatha or something, and then you sit on or stand at the edge of the Chankamana, edge of the walking path, or sit there and then contemplates how Rupa appeared and passed away while walking. Both these methods are okay. That was his instruction. So what does this mean? When we talk about focusing on the present life, So with our experience, yeah, it's for sure we should have an experience. That is like from the knowledge to we have to come into this see what the realities are. Mostly we gain it through the present experience. Present means while we think about this is consciousness and so forth. But also it is not really necessary, because as I said, a person who has jhana, how does he understand the raga? He has to think about the past experience that he had. So after we clarify what the realities are in the practical level, when we do the contemplation, what I mean was, it is not necessarily that we focus them at this very moment whenever they arise. It's not going to give there is no extra contribution to our understanding with that. So we understand the realities and we understand how it exists, and then we know that whenever jiva consciousness appears, it passes away. We have a direct experience on it. So then we keep on pondering or thinking, reflecting on it. Then we understand. Maybe while we are sitting in our quarters, we think about the jiva consciousness, the tongue consciousness, and contemplate that it is impermanent, suffering, and non-self. So in the end, what happens? We understand whenever a tongue consciousness appears, it would pass away. It's not a permanent thing. This can be done while we are eating even. That's what Mahasi Sayadaw said. Do it at that moment. It's a very wonderful technique. Only thing that is a big problematic in that is that it doesn't allow us to have a very detailed, deliberate contemplation. For example, jiva consciousness should be contemplated as impermanent, suffering, non-self. Because of its sankata nature, it's a non-self reality. Because of its sankata nature, it's a impermanent reality, as it has been explained in the Patisambhida Magga in detailed ways, like 40 ways of contemplation. Each and every reality has to be contemplated in 40 ways, like anicca, one at a time. But what happens? We keep on focusing on jiva vijnana, ear consciousness, eye consciousness. We have one type of understanding of either of anicca, dukkha, or anatta, but it doesn't give us the opportunity to lead in various ways based on samma sankappa. That is called samma sankappa according to the commentaries. Samma sankappa in Vipassanā have few explanations. One is when we focus at a certain object, that ascending to that object is samma sankappa. The next explanation is, which has been explained in the commentaries, samma sankappa is the fingers, like the fingers, samma ditti like the eyes. When we get a certain object, when we want to now, for instance, if this is, consider this is the Patavi Dhatu. This is our object. So we see its reality with our eyes. So we see it like this. We see a one view. We have a one view. But when now we are focusing on Patavi, we have one understanding. What the commentators are telling, take this Patavi as a fixed object, and then thinks it's about its impermanence. Then think about its suffering nature. Think about its non-self nature. Think about its roga nature, ganda nature, salla. So various ways, based on Patisambhida Magga, based on Abhidhamma, we understand about this reality in various ways. Then the dispassion comes very quickly and very deeply, very profoundly. For that, we have to think or turn this object. So that was done with our fingers. The commentators say the understanding, the seeing happens with eye. So it's like samma ditti is like the eye. That was facilitated by samma sankappa because we started to think about it, reflect upon it. When I say thinking, it may devalue the quality of samma sankappa. When we reflect or when we consider about the reality in various ways, for that we have to bring the object again and again in various angles. How do you understand it as a non-self thing? How do you understand it as a suffering thing? How do you understand it as a sickness? So the function of samma sankappa is to make the yogi to reflect the object in various ways. That's why, according to the Theravāda tradition, we say samma sankappa facilitates samadhi. the deeper, broader, advanced samadhi comes with this type of contemplation. For that, it's very difficult that we do it in a present day, present moment technique. So that is the danger of such a, I'm not talking about the danger of a technique. Technique is one can lead to the liberation. There's no doubt in it. It's a full, complete technique. With the knowledge, if someone has a knowledge, one can walk upon the path. There's no doubt about it, about that technique. But when we generalize the technique, we miss out a huge portion of the tradition, which is very useful and which has been fruitful for generations of time. So therefore, when we talk about the Vipassanā in Theravāda tradition, it's a huge thing. It's a huge means it varies in various ways. According to that, it's not possible that we say we focus only on the present moment. So when Buddha said focus on the present life, it means, as you said, we understand the realities not because of the past or the future, in this present moment. So we lead our contemplation about our day-to-day activities. Now, for example, according to Visuddhimagga, we are supposed to contemplate the Nama Rupas which happened in the morning, passed away before the daytime. The Nama Rupas which happened in the daytime passed away before the evening, afternoon, and Nama Rupas in the afternoon passed away in the evening. So we have to keep on doing these contemplations, and also contemplate Nama Rupas in the first decade passed away, didn't move to the second decade. So likewise, we have to contemplate about our life, about this existence. So it's effective when we focus on this life. It doesn't mean that when we contemplate the sixth decade of the Nama Rupas that we have to be in the 60s. No, it doesn't mean that even we contemplate about the last decade. We don't know how long we are going to live. It doesn't matter, because it's understanding about a phenomenon. I think, yeah, this will be the answer.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Bhante. I don't see any question here, and there is no hand. Yeah, so hello everyone. If you have any question, please raise your hand, or you can put the question in the chat box. We can read it out for you. Okay. Please go ahead, Susan. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Turuan Saranai Bhante, Turuan Saranai. I have a question about Kasiṇa meditation. Would you please tell us a little bit more about Kasiṇa meditation?
Okay, it's something not directly related, but I'll give a brief explanation about it. And also, someone has posted a question in the Q&A session that it's better that we do 40 Samatha meditation subjects in detail. I was thinking about it in our course, that there is a place that we are going to detailedly do about the Kasiṇa meditations and all, with all the details and how to lead it. So as the question was raised, if I talk about the blue Kasiṇa, for instance, you take a blue thing, and it's blue color. There are measurements, right? I think you have to take it from the books. These measure 2.5 spans, and it depends on the character as well. So after we have made it, normally it is said that to keep it on ground and sit on a chair and look at it. Sometimes these days what we do is we place it on a wall and sit and look at it. Doesn't matter how the angle is. There can be more easier ways. Maybe it's for most, it may be easier to look down sitting on a chair. So it depends on the person. So we normally keep it on a wall and start to see that is round. So the Kasiṇa, when we say Kasiṇa, the main object should be the blue circle. So when we say blue here, we have two meanings of blue. Blue color. I think we can refer to blue color and also a blue thing. The word blue, sorry, word Nila, it's better to say Nila in Pali. Nila in Pali have two meanings. So blue color, we are referring to a color. Now this phone is black. When we say the object of Kasiṇa is a concept, it's not an ultimate reality. So it's a phone is a thing, it's a concept. Though it's made out of 4 great elements, there are great elements here. But when we consider about the phone, it's one thing, and its black color is found. So when we focus on the black color, we are just focusing on one attribute of the entire phone. We are not focusing on the phone. Phone has a shape, phone has a size, phone has hardness, and so forth. And color is a one attribute. Then the next thing is we can call this phone a black thing, a black thing, a black phone. So when I say a phone, it comprises, because it's a concept, it includes all the qualities of the phone. The hardness, the cohesion, the bolted nature, the shape, the size, everything. With all, we call it a phone. So when I say a black phone, we are focusing on the concept together with the color. Together with the color. If we say only the black, we are talking about the black of the phone. We ignore the phone. We give more focus on the color. When we say a black phone, we are giving focus to the phone and the color at the same time. First, we need to see this difference. When we say blue color, we are focusing only at the color. When we say a blue thing, so here the focus is the color. When we say a blue thing, our focus has the thing and the color. Thing together with the color. Better to say. Together with the color. So when we say Nila in Kasiṇa, we have to focus on this aspect, not this.
Bhante, may I interrupt? Bhante.
Yeah, sure, please.
In this case, I have been practicing Aloka Kasiṇa. So would I be using the same principle as what you are teaching now?
Yeah, okay. So we talk about Aloka Kasiṇa, right? Okay, I'll change it. We take about Aloka. I'll take red color for instance, right? It's a light that normally it is mentioned, put a light and make a hole or circle, then focus it on a wall. Some would say look into a light bulb. We would not much recommend it because it's very difficult to our eyes. So normally even you put a torch or a bulb and that light beam is focused to a certain wall. So that may have different sizes. It can be determined how you make the hole. So then when we say light, aloka, right? Right? When we say aloka, we can focus on the color of the light. The color of the light. And next meaning is when we say aloka, the circle, the colorful circle, I would call. Made with the light beam. The the colorful circle made with the light beam. So here our focus is toward the color. So if it is a circle, for example, the circle, here the attention is the circle made by the light beam together with the color. So these are two things. If we focus only on the color, if this is the light beam, we are focusing on one aspect. Because the Kasiṇa is a Samatha meditation. It's about a concept. So when we say the circle made by the light together with the color, we are talking about this thing, even though it's not a very hard material like a Patavi Kasiṇa. It's a one kind of a disc. It has a shape. It has a size. It has a color. It's made by this beam. Now we think about this thing, not the color only. Thing which has a shape, which has a size, and which has a color. So we don't need to focus on them. When we say a thing, we don't need to focus on them separately. When we think about a light beam, a circle of light, all these are included. So you don't need to focus them separately. You have to understand. This is for the understanding. We focus on the light only, the color only. We are focusing on one aspect. When we think about the light beam, the circle of light made out of this, we focus, our mind automatically focuses on the color, the shape, and the size. You don't need, if you separately focus on them, you divert away from the meditation. So what one has to think is, get this concept, this idea, conceptual idea about a light circle. The circle created by a light beam. So then we get this idea, the light. We are not focusing on the color, we are focusing on the light beam. If this was red Kasiṇa, we are not focusing on the red color, we are focusing on the red thing, the red circle. Red circle means a circle with a certain shape, size, and with a certain red color. If we focus on the color, yeah, sure.
Let me interject. Then when you say circle, do you also mean the body, the whole thing, the solid, the whole like the solid?
No. We are talking about the round which was made by the light, not the wall, not the surface.
Okay.
Not the surface. Because, so that's why I say it's not a very hard material thing.
But the circle is solid. I mean, the light is solid. It's like a spot on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on the wall. Yes, spot. It's better to say the spot. Right? So we are talking about the spot. So when we talk about the spot, yeah, it's better to say spot. The spot has a shape, it has a size, it has a color. So we have to focus on the spot together with all. So you don't need to focus them separately. So then this idea of the spot is what should be the object. Then opening the eyes, we focus on the spot, the aloka. We use the Pali word. So we have to get the idea of a light spot. Is a good word is spot than the circle. Thank you for that. Then we try to close our eyes and try to get that idea spot as we saw. It is not necessarily, for some people, we look into a light and we close our eyes. Sometimes we have a certain image made by that light. It is not the object of Kasiṇa. It is a physical thing. It's a physical effect to our eyes. So here what we are talking about, the idea of a spot, light spot, which is, example is what is in front of you. So taking this as an example, we think about the light spot. So normally when we keep on pondering or thinking about it, a light spot would appear. We would start to see a light spot, which is very similar, not identical, very similar to the spot that you are focusing at. But because it becomes the example to your contemplation. So after that, we can see that image with our eyes, with our closed eyes. We can see it as we see it on with our open eyes. Then we don't need to focus on the spot. We go to our secluded place and start to contemplate on this light. We develop the concentration on this spot. Then we come into higher stages of concentration.
So that's the part I've reached up to that part where I close my eyes. I can still see the spot. The spot sometimes becomes larger and larger.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see a lot of nimittas, which I try to then don't follow. I don't follow the pictures that come out, but just continue to focus on the spot. Then what? Exactly. Then what next?
That means like after you close your eyes, you can still see the spot, right? And you have to keep on focusing on that. You have to keep on focusing on that. Then for that, we need some extra information. Like we have to change our daily routines, daily habits, the way of our thinking, how we consider about this spot. It's a very good thing that we don't consider about the pictures that emerge in our meditation. So then it may grow up, it may grow up and down. We should not determine at the beginning to grow it up and down. And then we keep on focusing on this, and it would become more and more clearer. And there will be a moment that this spot, you will see a huge difference in the spot that you are focusing, that it would become brighter and more colorful. Colorful means brighter, I'm saying, than the spot that you're observing. So that moment, the defilements would get subdued, So if we should not determine in the beginning that may grow or may become smaller. It has to be done in the advanced level, especially when we are using that light for our higher concentrations and so forth, that we determine it to grow and make it to, get smaller, shrink. But in the beginning, if it naturally happens, just focus on the light. It would not go out of our control. In the beginning, it may have such verities that are happening. So just focusing on it. And the next thing is we have to get away from sensuality now gradually. That is very important. Otherwise, we may have a focus, but if in our day-to-day life, we are having the lust and the things are coming up, it would hinder going into the next stage.
Thank you. That's the information I don't have. Thank you. That takes me to the next step. Bhante, do you think I need a personal teacher on this? Because I was told, oh, stop doing Kasiṇa. You need a personal teacher.
If you have the proper instructions, if you have the proper knowledge, it's not necessarily. But if we are not very deeply knowledgeable about the consciousness and about the subject, it's very highly recommended that we take a teacher. So there are some English-speaking teachers who are good experts, who have practical experience about this. I would recommend you in this regard of Samatha practice for the Kasiṇas and so forth, some knowledgeable teachers in the PAOK tradition. But I'm not sure whether, because the PAOK method says about going to Anapana and going to the Kasiṇa, but this is a direct dry Kasiṇa that you have gained. So therefore, it's better to discuss with some teachers who have some experience on this. Then they will instruct you more. The thing is, what I understand with your explanations is that after someone has the Uggaha Nimitta, the initial Nimitta that she can see, like you don't need to sit on a light again. Like if you have that Uggaha Nimitta, you can anytime bring that image and start to focus on it, right? So then the next stage happens only when the sensuality is subdued.
Yes, I hear you. Thank you, Bhante. I hope this question also benefit everyone.
Okay, sadhu.
Thank you. Sadhu.
Yeah, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante. There is one more hand, so I guess you're not going to take it, Bhante?
Yeah, we'll take it to next week.
Oh, okay, thank you, Bhante. Sadhu.
Okay. So wish you all the best and thank you for joining. May all these merits help us to attain nirvana and for the prolongation of the sasana. Buddha Sasanang Chirantiktatu. Buddha Sasanang Chirantiktatu. Buddha Sasanang Chirantiktatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu,
And
sadhu,
yeah.
sadhu.
And
Thank you.
Dr. Ryan, you can call if he or she wants to have that question. He write on the chat box, and we can take that question as the first question next week.
Okay, I will. Thank you, Bhante.